We need reinforcement for this. When we are trying to change a deeply ingrained, probably trauma response, we need others around us for accountability, but also for care. We have to check in with ourselves and say, gosh, this 5 minutes, I'm feeling really guilty. I should be doing something.
Freedom to Know Wellness, a disability advocacy platform to hold space and give a voice to those with complex medical and chronic pain conditions, female reproductive challenges and miscarriages, and address other disability-related topics, including how these experiences affect one's mental health. Welcome to Freedom to Know Wellness, where voices are heard. Please advise, the information provided in this episode is from the opinions of the interviewee and interviewer. For further medical advice, please contact your practitioner. Now, let's start the interview.
This Freedom to Know Wellness episode is in collaboration with the 2026 Festival of Literary Diversity. Alt text description. Farzana Doctor, author of 52 Weeks to a Sweeter Life and The Beauty of Us, is an author, psychotherapist, and activist. Farzana is a South Asian woman with dark curly hair and wearing a black lace top. Welcome, Farzana, to Freedom to Know Wellness. Thank you so much for being on this podcast and to share, your experience as a social worker and an author and a practitioner with my listeners.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Out of curiosity, what drew you into becoming or collaborating, being an author and being a practitioner and a social worker?
These things were just kind of happening simultaneously. I've always written. As a kid, I wrote. And then I ended up going into social work because in my last year of my bachelor's, I ended up getting a job as a casual worker at a women's shelter in Hamilton. And I was very much an activist through those years at McMaster. And I was really trying to think about like what would be a job that I could do that would earn me a decent wage that would also help with social change. And we could debate whether social work actually does that. But at the time, that was how I decided to go into social work. And then I just kept writing on the side. And then I started to take my writing life much more seriously around 25 years ago when I wrote my first, or started writing my first novel. And I've just continued since then. The writing has become a really important part of my life. I write in the morning and I see clients in the afternoon.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I recently purchased your novel, 52 Weeks
Mhm.
to a Sweeter Life. And 52 weeks, you would say, why 52 weeks, which feels intentional and slow. What led you to approach or create this approach to healing?
Yeah. So, up until then, I had just written fiction and poetry, but I had been compiling a lot of the material in 52 weeks for clients and also people who I supervise. And, there comes a point because I had written a number of books before 52 weeks. There's a point with it where your author's brain kind of turns on and says, "Oh, this is a lot of material. I think this is a book." And one of the things that I saw with working with younger social workers who were having a lot of trouble bringing in self and community care into their lives, they could preach about it. They told all their clients, their friends, they told everybody about it, but they weren't able to do it for themselves. So, one of the things that I really realized in talking to them is that it needs to be easy, it needs to be simple, needs to be quick. And so each of the weeks, each of the chapters in 52 Weeks to a Sweeter Life are really set up to be like a 3-minute read with optional exercises that could take a little longer, optional deeper dive readings that could take longer, but easy to achieve. So in the course of a week, you're just reading a little bit, then you build on that concept the following week and so on. And then there's a recap in week 4 so you can catch up on what you missed. So it's meant to be quick and easy and incremental.
You have a quote in the beginning of your book, or it says, as an activist, community organizer, and social worker, Farzana Doctor has preached self care to hundreds of people struggling with burnout and exhaustion. But for years, she couldn't manage to take her own advice. Now, many of us who are, caregivers, those who like to overextend ourselves, this is a problem that many of us, we can give the advice and we're not willing to manage to take our own advice. And is this something, why do you think this is? Do you think it has something to do with we can preach how we're supposed to live, but we don't know how to live it ourselves? Is it the fact that we understand what it is to overextend ourselves, but don't know the balance of boundaries? What do you think is
Yeah.
the reason why we do this? And
So
I'm
there's
guilty of this myself.
yeah, there's probably so many reasons, but for me, the overextending, the overdoing, has to do with trauma responses, right? So for some people, and particularly for helpers, many of the helpers I know grew up being helpers. They were the family mediators, they were the cultural interpreters, um, they were the ones who maybe took the emotional load for parents who didn't have the emotional skills to manage. So there's a kind of parentification that sometimes happens to people who are the caregivers of the world. And so it becomes this way of being. It becomes a way of feeling self-worth. It can just feel like such an automatic thing. Our trauma responses are just so automatic until we can stop, we can pause, we can notice, we can acknowledge it, we can get some feedback from our good friends who are feeling impatient with us. Maybe we want to go to therapy to try to resolve some of this. We need to have a process in which we say, oh, right, I'm doing that thing again. That's okay. Lots of self-compassion. This is just a part of me that got developed over time. And what do I really want to see happen instead of the overdoing? And I want to say that this is a work in progress because boundaries and situations are always changing. I'm much, much better at it than I used to be, but I will still run into weeks where I feel like there's too much crammed in there and I'm still saying yes to one more thing. My partner will often say to me, not often, as often, but periodically, my partner will say, do you really want to do that? Because, the day before you got this and the next day you got that. And that's helpful. It's helpful to have a loved one be an extra brain to just help to interrupt this process so that I can come back online and just notice and acknowledge and figure out the boundary.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's interesting. How I fully got introduced to you was through the Festival of Literary Diversity, and specifically your workshop, the Lunch and Learn. And I've noticed throughout the whole festival, the virtual workshop specifically, there was a lot of conversations around boundaries, especially as creatives, but also especially around disability and chronic illness. And this was something that often came up. How do you see your idea of sweetness connecting to boundaries, especially when balancing visibility and self-preservation?
Oh, it's really hard. It's first of all, just to acknowledge that. And, I think of, so I put sweetness in the title because I was thinking like 52 weeks to what? What is it that we're trying to have in our lives? And there were so many ways, long-winded ways that wouldn't fit into a title of trying to express um, something that has to do with balance. But I thought sweetness is short and sweet. Um, so for me, in terms of that, being an author, being a public figure, a lot of it has to do with figuring out what is the impact of being public on me, and then what do I need to balance that out. So for me, I identify as a highly sensitive person. Something like 15 to 20% of the population probably is. This is Elaine Aron's work around highly sensitive people. And what that means, and by the way, we cluster around care work and artistic work. So probably a lot of the people who are listening have some of this going on. So I know that when I go out to an event, I feel overstimulated. I can do whatever I can before the event to try to protect some of my psychic boundaries so that I feel less overstimulated in those environments, but I still do. So then I need to come home and I need to do some grounding work. And then I need to assess what now? What do I need now? Something that I have built in is a quieter day after a loud day. So that's so, I think we all have different ways of figuring out these boundaries, but it does take a lot of awareness.
You said something about being the grounding and the importance of grounding to be able to help just not just with the energy around you, just within yourself. Um, there appears to be a strong connection or correlation between groundedness and I'm so sorry, I'm going through a brain fog, and I know I
It's
was about
okay.
to say
That's just part of life, isn't
between
it?
groundedness and boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is something that I haven't figured out exactly, and I'm learning this for myself, but how does that really correlate, maybe medically wise? Have you been able to expand furthermore on how they correlate?
Well, one of the frameworks that I really like is the window of capacity or window of tolerance model. That was one of the things I talked about in that lunch and learn. So, this is a theory that was developed by Dr. Siegel, and then people have worked with it to develop it. Many of us call it the window of capacity model versus window of tolerance, just because capacity is something that's easier for us to check into, I think. And we want to see what is our spaciousness, what is our expansion, what is our capacity, what's available to us. So that model kind of looks at how our nervous system works and how it's really natural and very normal. We have evolved to shift into overwhelm multiple times in the day. And it talks about a state of hyperarousal, which is kind of like fight, flight, sometimes freeze energy, anxious, difficult to settle, and then hypoarousal, another form of overwhelm where we get kind of shut down and numb. So that's a model I think that is really useful for maybe making this connection. When we can move, when we can sort of figure out what are our own coping strategies, what are some of our somatic strategies that help us move back into the window of capacity, that's when we feel curious and calm, grounded, um, just able to think clearly. We feel creative there too. So I think that when we are in that state, when we can pause long enough to notice that we've left that state and come back to that state, that's the state where we can make great assessments around boundaries. And the assessment might be, I feel foggy about this. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to call my best friend. So it might involve community care, reaching out for help. It might also involve individual self-care. How do I ground myself so I can make a great decision for myself?
That's actually very integral for the community that I support. For example, this month, May, is Fibromyalgia Awareness Month. And fibromyalgia in the past has been titled the overachiever's disease for individuals who push past their limits, care for others, struggle with rest and boundaries. And this mindset can be a hard habit to break. And I'm speaking from personal experience, it's very hard to break because you're so ingrained and in tune to want to behave in this manner. And for many, this condition has unintentionally forced them to slow down due to chronic pain and fatigue. Now, from your book, and actually, you've actually touched on it with the window of capacity, but from your book, from your personal experience, and as a practitioner, what guidance would you offer to help people shift towards a healthier approach to self care? One that allows for rest and boundaries without feeling of guilt, inadequacy, or believing that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say baby steps, always small steps. Finding moments where you can rest and then experiment with it. And maybe it's just 5 minutes. You're like, okay, I'm going to build in 5 minutes at lunchtime to lie down, or I'm going to build in 5 minutes to meditate or go for a walk. Like start really small and then notice the discomfort that arises, right? There's an exercise called peace breathing in the book that helps with pausing, acknowledging what's going on, sensations as well as emotions, offering ourselves some self-compassion. Also, find compassion from those around us. We need reinforcement for this when we are trying to change a deeply ingrained, probably trauma response. We need others around us for accountability, but also for care. So I think we have to check in with ourselves and say, gosh, this 5 minutes, I'm feeling really guilty. I should be doing something. We just have to be with that feeling and let it pass. And then maybe we build up to 10 minutes, or maybe we build up to 2 5-minute slots in the day. Something I really recommend, even for building in awareness of the window of capacity, is that we do this repetitively through the day and we habit stack it to another thing that we're always doing. So I check in with my nervous system every time I go to the bathroom because I'm doing that multiple times in the day, right? We have to do that multiple times in the day. It's a quiet moment where I'm by myself, unless I'm babysitting a dog. There's always a dog in the bathroom then. But it's like a moment to just be like, where's my nervous system? Am I feeling some fight flight energy? Yeah, I am. I just dealt with a terse email in my inbox.
Mm,
Okay, what do I need to release some of that fight flight energy? For me, it's always something that involves muscles. So it might be a minute of bouncing or shaking. Dogs like to shake it out.
mm,
If there are people listening who it's hard to do some of that movement, even a tense and release. I'm tensing and releasing my hands right now. If we do that for 10 breaths, we might notice that some of that fight, because fight in our fists, right? We might release some of that. But there's also um, other kinds of strategies that people like that are more gentle, like the butterfly hug that involves the tapping bilaterally, left and right, left and right. So for people who are curious about somatic strategies as a way to ground, as a way to kind of enter into this state that we're looking for, there's like a million resources now out there for somatic strategies. I've got the hashtag somatic strategies in some of my searches for Instagram so that it pops up on a regular basis because I need reminders. I need new strategies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's something, this strategies that you're speaking about, and I had noticed this the very beginning because, as I said, I just got your book, but there was something specific that stood out to me. And being coming from immigrant parents, and I believe from what you're saying in your book that you've
Mm,
come from immigrant parents,
yes.
and that, let me see if I can find it. I'm going to speak off the top of my head, but what you were saying about having to push yourself above and beyond. As new immigrants, people of color, we're always taught you have to push yourself above and beyond. And so when you were speaking about community, it's interesting because it's important to have community that will support you in your holistic healing. But it's oftentimes very difficult when our culture doesn't understand, for example, the need for seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist. Like I can speak from the Black community. It's like, oh, why are you speaking to someone? You only speak to your family or you only speak to your church. It can sometimes throw a person off of how do you find that balance of self-care. And we mentioned in regards to trying to take at least 5 minutes just to be able to meditate and self-care, but it really is a retraining of the mind to say self-care is okay, especially
Yes.
coming from a culture background where it's like, no, 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 you need to take care of everyone else. No, 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 you do not share with other people your experience. How did you find, and you're probably going to divulge that more in the book, I'm excited to read, but how did you find that journey for yourself to change that mindset?
Yeah, and you're raising a really important thing. A lot of what I write about in the book is fairly politicized because We cannot separate self-community care from all of the socio-political things that we're dealing with, right? And yes, so many kids of immigrants or immigrants, feel that they must be model minorities, that we must work much harder. And then just looking at the angle of female socialization and how there is a real push to take care of everybody before yourself. These are all things in our culture that we absorb and then have to really be able to rethink and ask ourselves, do I want this? Does this make sense? And then I think we need to find people within our communities who understand both those ideas that we've grown up with and the idea that we have choices. We do need to have affirmation even from within our communities around all of this. And so you can find examples of that all over the place. You're an example of that, right? We're seeing so many more ethno-specific therapists and influencers and authors who are talking about all of this. So for me, it involved kind of understanding. So where did I learn all of this? My dad, bless his heart, is very much a workaholic. He was a doctor, and I think some of that is embedded in their training as well. Plus, there was very much that immigrant, you didn't get the A+, you got an A, not good enough. You have to be the best. And
Yeah.
so I very much, I was striving for that as a child to receive that approval. And I would feel really terrible if I came second in my class. And sometimes I did. It was such a blow, right? So there was this drive to be the best, be exceptional all the time. But when we turn towards community and say, none of us have to be exceptional, and in fact, when we're exceptional, we are outside of the community. We are not
Mm,
part of, right?
mm,
Exceptional means that you're somewhere out in outer space. Like you are not part of our collective humanity. You're the exception. So when I started to turn more towards community, and the same thing happens in my writing life, right? The literary community loves a celebrity. Our awards culture celebrates probably across all the big awards. It's going to be the same six people who win, who clean up with all those awards. And those are the books that become the celebrity books for that year. And then they're forgotten. So there is this push even within the arts communities that we have to be the exception. But it's an elusive thing for us to be chasing, and it creates a lot of division and competition when we could be saying, what are we here for on this planet? We're here to love, right? We're here to help. We're here to create social change and social justice. We're here so that there's enough for everybody. And so if we shift our orientation even in the writing community towards that, we create space for everybody and then we're all happier. That means that we all can't be rich and famous, but that's okay, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with you. Everyone has their destiny, but the thing is, if we're working no matter what as a collective, we're all pulling each other up.
Yes.
If I'm saying it correctly, you could be a millionaire and then you could be an quote unquote impoverished person. But if you're still working as a collective, we're all working to support one another. So I
Yeah.
agree with you. I agree with you
Mhm.
completely. So we're going to close. But before we close, would you mind just guiding us through a short grounded or mindfulness technique to be able to implement?
Yeah, I'd love to. How about I actually walk us through peace breathing because
Yes.
it's a nice short one. All of what I've got in the book are easy to use short ones. So peace stands for, like, it's an acronym.
Mm-hmm.
P is for pause, E is for exhale, which really means breathe. A is for acknowledging the sensations and the feelings. C is for compassion, and then E is for exhale, breathing again. So I will walk us through all of that, but I wanted people to know about that acronym because it's nice to be able to remember stuff. Okay. Everybody, take a moment and just pause. Put down anything you're holding, touching, and just tune inwards for 5 seconds. We're just pausing here. Okay, so we've arrived to ourselves. Now I'm going to suggest we take 3 long breaths, and these are going to be inhales that are about half the length of our exhales, whatever that is for you. I'm going to do a 3-6 breath, but you do whatever works for your own lungs. So in for 3, exhale for 6. In for 3, exhale for 6. Inhale for 3, out for 6. Now take a little time to acknowledge whatever sensations are arising in your body. You can also acknowledge any thoughts and feelings. Just go with whatever is coming first. And you're acknowledging, not trying to solve anything. You're trying to receive those emotions and sensations with curiosity. So I might say, oh, hello, funny little ache in my lower back. Or hello, sadness that's crossing through my chest right now. Or hello, left foot that is falling asleep. So just take a moment for yourselves. Acknowledge without judgment, without solving anything. So C stands for compassion. And so this means just really loading yourself down with compassion for whatever's going on. If it's hard for you to offer yourself compassion, imagine you're offering a compassionate word or sentence to your best friend. So you would say, oh, honey, I'm so sorry that there's sadness here right now. Or, oh, yeah, gosh, that can be hard to have that funny little pain in your lower back, whatever it is that so just load yourself down with compassion. A normalizing, validating statement. Final step is the breathing again. So I'll just lead us through the 3-6 breath. So in for 3, out for 6, in for 3, out for 6, in for 3, and out for 6. And then you just notice where you're at. Perhaps at this point you move on with your day. Perhaps as you were doing this, some kind of cool insight arrived that you might want to write down. But you might need to do a second round of this if the feelings were particularly big or hard, depending on your time. If people are interested in listening to a recording of this, I'm on Insight Timer, and that's a free meditation app, and nearly all of my recordings are free, and that one is free. So you would just look for me and then look for peace breathing, and if you wanted a guided recording of this.
You must have been reading my mind because literally I was going to say, speaking of insight, which funny enough, Farzana has been my go-to listening for managing hot flashes or night sweats on Insight Timer. And I didn't realize who she was until I'm thinking, okay, I'm seeing her, I'm speaking with her, I'm watching the virtual workshop during the fold. And I said, wait a minute, I'm recognizing this woman. It's because I listened to her at night to assist me with my night sweats. So
I'm
it's
just so honored. I'm so honored that in the middle of the night you're finding that to be a resource.
yes, yes. Thank you so much. And where else can my listeners find you on social media, websites, etc.?
Yeah, Instagram is great. I'm just there as Farzana Doctor. I have a website, farzanadoctor.com, for my writing life. And that's also where you can find all the deep dives for 52 Weeks to a Sweeter Life if you click on the 52 Weeks tab.
Great, great. And you can be able to find your book on your website as well. And on Amazon, I actually got mine through another bookstore in Toronto, but you
Yeah.
can be able to collect it online as well.
Yes, yes. I would say go online to the indie bookstores if you possibly can. The indie bookstores need your money. Jeff Bezos does not.
Good point. Good point. Thank you again.
Okay,
So,
thank
to my
you.
listeners, as we like to close, reading information is one thing, but listening to a lived experience is another and paramount. And that's what we do here at Freedom to Know Wellness. Thank you again and be well. Thank you, Farzan. I really appreciate this.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. I appreciate your questions.
Thank you for listening to this episode. To have your voice heard on Freedom to Know Wellness, email us at info@freedomtoknowwellness.ca for content like this and more. Subscribe to the Freedom to Know Wellness blog at freedomtoknowwellness@substack.com. And for more podcasts, follow our FTK Wellness YouTube channel and find Freedom to Know Wellness on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget us on social media at FTK Wellness.